We're live.
And wait, and baby, I'm TFC till I die.
Hello and welcome back to Toronto Till I Die, the Toronto FC fan show. I'm Mike Newell, and just like the CNE, Toronto FC loves to pump you full of dreams, delicious food, thrilling rides, while in reality, you just get kind of gross, deep-fried pickled Oreos and rides that just let you down and are of questionable durability. And this is what we had to deal with on Saturday night. We will discuss Toronto FC's dreadful 3-1 loss against DC United. We will talk a little bit. We've kind of delayed it on the show because, vibes. But John Herdman, man, we probably should use this international break to talk a little bit about whether or not our boy's in trouble here over Drone Gate. And we will tee up, call it tee up, the playoff run-in with 6 regular season games left on the schedule. So much to get into. Let's bring in my co-host, Jeffrey P. Nesker, and friend of the show, Rachel Doerrie. Welcome, guys. How are we doing? Hope the long weekend was great for you guys. Tell me one of you was on a patio or a deck or a Muskoka chair at some point. Give me the vibes from the long weekend. Rachel, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I got a front row seat to whatever happened on the weekend at BMO Field.
So not
That
comforting and remotely fun.
No. And then the rest of the weekend I worked. So I'm not really sure what was a worse experience. Whatever happened at BMO Field or me sitting in front of my computer coding all weekend. It's really hard to say.
Fair.
I mean, you got paid for coding. You paid in your soul for watching the thing, whatever that was, on Saturday. So I'm gonna go with coding. Notes. Muskoka chairs, Mike. Your Canadiana is showing. Those are Adirondack chairs. Thank you very much. And also, I am pretty sure you weren't at the game, but I know Rachel was because we just discussed before we went live on broadcast. And anybody that follows any of my socials knows that I went to the X because I spent $50 on Lego minifigs and then proceeded to build them all Sunday and show them off. Yeah. And something else witty to say, but I can't remember what it was. I think it might have done with the deep fried Oreos, which sound kind of good. They sound kind of delicious, Mike.
There's no way. Like I don't know, man.
Okay, I ate them.
Okay, verdict.
Deep fried Oreos, good. Deep fried pickled Oreos, as somebody who likes Oreos and pickles, absolutely not.
Exactly.
No.
Yeah.
And the fact that I paid $16 for them is a crime, and I want my money back.
Just one Oreo, or like was it at least a double stuffed Oreo? Like
it was
or
2
was it-
Oreos, so $8 in Oreos.
Wow.
See, this is okay. So I know
Obnoxious.
Okay, so
Yeah,
we're going to
that's
talk about
obnoxious.
TFC, but I do need to really briefly go in on the CNE here because look, when I was a kid and I lived in the city and my parents would take me to CNE
You just reminded
times.
me.
Yeah, multiple times a season to go to the CNE. And as a kid, it was wonderful. And you know why it was wonderful? Because I never ate the bad food. No one,
Of course, yes,
no
you
one
did.
was, at worst, when you got like pork on a stick, like that was the daring stuff back then, right? Like this last little trend of coming up with these increasingly gross foods to get people to pay. I mean, look, I'm sure somebody loved the deep fried pickled Oreos. I'm sure somebody loved the crazy, stupid, big
Wasabi
ice cream sandwich or whatever. Yeah, wasabi ice cream,
Okay,
whatever
the
it was.
two things I will say, there were 2 things that I saw viral that I had, and they lived up and surpassed the hype. And I was like, actually, worth my money. I'm okay with it.
Was
Look.
one of them the wasabi ice cream?
No, absolutely not.
All right. So long story short, I'm not going to go on as much longer other than just to say, look, you go and spend your money, do whatever you want at the CNE. But man, like there is no way, one, I want to do the CNE and then 2, do the CNE with a TFC game on with all them people down there. Like, I love you and I love TFC. I just don't want to swim through people, you know? I don't want to
That's
be
half the
stuck at
fun, man.
I don't want to be stuck at my gate for like 10 minutes, then to wait like an hour and a half for my train. You know, like at a certain point, I'm just like, you know what? You know what? Apple TV. So I rag on you, but hey, you know, I can do it from my
No,
house.
I will.
the waffle ice cream sandwich thingy was incredible. I was like, damn, I kind of wish I got a second one. It was so good. And
Nice.
the other one was the creme brulee chimney cone. So like there's an actual, I think it's like Olga's chimney cones or something like that. And I go there,
Nice.
like it's good generally speaking. So whenever it's at the X, like I'm always interested in the specialty stuff because they're really creative and like last year's was really good. I
Yep.
also creme brulee is a top 3 dessert for me. So I was like, oh, like I'm gonna
elite.
try it. Both
God tier,
of those
yep.
things were worth every penny. Everything else I put in my mouth, I was like, I could have probably done without this.
Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah. I mean, I love pita pit. There was one in the food building. It wasn't really a pita pit. It was like a sad pita pit. I ordered chicken Caesar. And they were out of croutons and everything that makes it a Caesar. So I basically got like a bacon.
So you just got lettuce and
wrap,
soggy dressing.
Yeah, with
Awesome.
soggy Caesar dressing, and I'm pretty sure Alicia and I food poisoned ourselves. You know, the older you get, the less inclined you are to risk life and limb on those rides. You know, Alicia's 2 favorite rides are both rides that killed people recently, so we completely avoided that. You know, somebody fell off the swing set like 40 feet at the beginning of the CNE this year, and then
Wait, what?
Yeah, that 50-foot swing set, somebody fell all 50 feet and like broke their legs and all appendages and stuff.
Oh
Yeah,
my God.
yeah, they're really yeah.
I saw
Yeah,
somebody
it ain't
propose
good.
on the
I hope it wasn't the swing set.
no,
The
the
swingy
seat
things.
thingy.
There's a lot of seat thingies at the X.
Yeah,
Okay,
which
the
one?
big one.
You gotta be a bit more
The
specific.
Ferris wheel?
The thing with
No,
the
the
seats.
Ferris wheel?
No, the
Chairlift.
drop chair thing,
Oh,
the
okay.
droppy chair.
No,
thing,
not that.
Yeah.
Like the thing that runs. That
Oh,
takes
the
you-
thing
looks
with
like
the
a
crazy
ski
long
lift.
runs around
lineup.
like the South.
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw
Yeah,
somebody
you can
propose
see-
on that, and I was like, oh,
Nice.
okay, but like I'm not sure you could get me to go on that right now, given that people
Yeah.
are falling off rides and whatever.
No, I
But it's
propose
cute.
that lineup is far too long to wait to get up on like a chairlift that goes nowhere, right? Like it just goes in a big circle. You know, you don't even get
let's
to
end
ski
it on
down the hill
this.
there.
I mean,
Mm.
that's true love. If you're gonna say, "Hey, spend the rest of your life with me while we eat these deep fried, disgusting pickled Oreos," that's how you know you're in love.
What is this logic? If you propose at the CNE, you're just stuck there forever, like the Phantom Zone.
Your
Like,
love
that
is
doesn't-
stuck there forever. Basically, you have signed your
All right.
Yeah, you can't get a
life
divorce.
package with cholesterol,
Guys,
Okay, like
I'd be lying if I said I don't already have a list of the Lego minifigs that I want for next year and the ones that I passed on this year that I want to go back and immediately get next year. So the CNE has found a way to get me in my older age right back on the horse. I'm not
Fair
doing
enough.
the rides.
Fair
I don't
enough.
care about the beer festivals. You know, I really don't give a crap about the shitty food, but Lego minifigs, let me tell you.
I like the stuff in the Intercare Center. I'm with you. Like the little kiosks and stuff. I got like new soaps and creams, and I got people were walking around with these walking sticks. I had no idea where they got those.
Yeah, they were great. Everybody had a
There was good
walking
stuff.
stick. Yeah,
I don't understand where they came from, but
No,
Let me know.
eventually I will. That's the, you know, or I'll be my dad. You know, my dad used to go just for the first aid kiosk to buy like tweezers and stuff. The only problem is you can't bring weapons into the BMO for the game. So until they reschedule the games that, you know, were at the daytime, so you can go see TFC and then buy your deadly weapons / first aid kit stuff, I'm not going home with any first aid kit stuff. But
well,
yeah.
well, there
All
you go,
right.
guys.
Do
10
we
minutes of
have?
us
We're
ranting
gonna have
on
to
the
talk
CNE.
about this.
Yeah,
football game, aren't we?
basically we spent almost 10 minutes doing it because we don't really want to talk about this, but we got to talk about it.
We got to talk about it.
You know, there was a football game played this Saturday at the CNE.
Boy, was there ever.
A 3-1 loss to DC United. Look, we can get into a lot. It's hard, at least in my view, and you guys let me know. And in the comments, you guys are already kind of going off as well. But it's hard to look at this game from a tactical perspective and not talk about losing Jonathan Osorio and Federico Bernardeschi for this
100%.
game. We've talked about the indiscipline piece before, so I don't know if we need to go into it much further. Rachel, you may have thoughts on it, but you could see, like, it's clear, obviously, you're going to see this team not be the same without your arguably 2 of your 3 best players, right?
What I will say about the undisciplined stuff, and I believe this extends to Richie Larea as well.
Mm.
I would rather have guys who are suspended for yellow card accumulation because they are out there leaving it all on the pitch and maybe go over the line sometimes versus guys who I have to wonder if they try. You know what I mean? Like, if I obviously you want something in the middle, but if you have one option or the other option, I'm taking the one option every time because I want guys who give a darn about the crest.
Okay, go ahead, Jeff.
Mhm.
Sorry, go ahead.
I don't think those are mutually exclusive, and I
That's
think
what
that
I'm trying
the
to- yeah.
reasoning behind why, like, I wrote it down here and I tweeted something out much that wasn't nearly as eloquent as I'm going to try to be right now, but like this idea of there's a reason this frustration is manifesting, right? And let's talk about Oso in particular, right? Oso is the captain of this version of TFC, which means that it's not fair to compare him to a team that worked, right? He's representing this Franken team, and this Franken team is an island of misfit toys that get frustrated, that get petulant, that do all the things that we can see with our own eyes, and he's out there trying to represent them. And that doesn't mean telling them on the field that their feelings don't matter. That means trying to be a sieve for whatever BS is occurring out there and dealing with his own personal frustrations. So it can't be easy. I would extend that to Richie Larea. I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think we're seeing this lack of discipline for reasons. And one of them is,
I think to me, it's, I agree with you, Rachel. Like, obviously you want players fighting for the crest, right? Like, yes, I 100% agree with that.
But I also need them to be disciplined, especially when you're wearing the armband.
Well, yes. And then I think also you got to think about it from a way of these aren't yellow cards taken because you're trying to like stop a breakaway or a professional foul. I can understand that if you got to take a yellow to do professional foul things and stop
those, that's what they're for.
100%. Exactly, right?
Yeah.
These ones were got, a lot of them are got for talking back to a referee, for dissent. And that is something different. That is not like I get it. Like you're obviously going to back up your teammates and you want to, you want to back them up and things like that. But there are other ways to do it, with better play, with physical play that's within the bounds, right? And this is what I'm talking about, but in discipline. I'm not talking about taking yellow cards because you have to take professional fouls. That's another, that might be another conversation in terms of tactics and things like that. But like, why are you getting those positions in the first place? But, it's more around this idea of you're back talking referees. They're professional footballers who know what you are not going to, no referee in the history of refereeing is going to be like, you know what, man, you just called me the S word. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to turn around and take away this yellow from this player. I'm going to recall this play, drop ball. Like, never happens, right? And now you put yourself in the team in a situation, okay, where you go into a must-win game against DC United at home, okay, where this is a team that's chasing you down for a playoff spot. Yes, they're last in the East, but they're only just at that point, they were only, I think, 4 or 5 points behind.
Right.
And
it's too tight a gap to be
it's a 6-pointer.
Those kinds of defensive lapses.
Yeah. Exactly. And then what you end up in a situation where you look at this team tactically in that game and that sort of middle of the park, on top of that 18, you just lack the dynamic presence there. Like Lorenzo said, you try to drift over and try to take those spots at times. But when you don't have the guys he normally plays off of, Federico Bernardeschi and Jonathan Osorio, you kind of get a performance you got on Saturday, which is a lot of possession in the first half, at least, and not really doing much with it.
Yeah, I think part of the issue I have with TFC, this iteration of them, is there isn't a ton of depth and the tactics that John Herdman wants to play. And I don't tweet about it a ton anymore because I'm so tired of people being like, "What do you know about soccer? Do you even know tactics?" And I'm just like, I'm not dealing with this
Yeah, the
anymore.
gotcha people. My goodness. Oh,
And
yeah.
I'm just like, why do you think I don't tweet about soccer anymore? Maybe because there are certain things that constrain me from doing so. But like
Hmm.
the thing that I think we can talk about this when we get to John Herdman, but on the Oso and Fede part, which is kind of where we're at, the way that TFC's tactics shape, you need all four of Oso, Fede, Lorenzo, and Richie in your starting 11.
Yep.
And you simply cannot employ that system and those tactics if they are not in the lineup. And so when you are missing two of those four, you handicap the other two because nobody else on the team, TFC does not have the depth to be able to execute on those tactics when those players are not in the 11. And so at what point do you have to turn to your skipper and go, "Hey, pal, maybe we need something that other players are capable of executing?"
Hmm.
Because, I mean, the reality of the situation is maybe less Oso, but how many guys in the league can execute on things that Federico Bernardeschi can execute on? You cannot have a system that's reliant on him executing at a Serie A level when you're playing with guys who are playing at TFC too. Like, that just doesn't work.
Yeah,
It's
and
not wrong.
no, and I guess that sort of goes into this next point about, John Herdman tactically. Is this a game where we kind of saw a little bit of that inflexibility in the way that he plays? Like, we know how he's going to
100
line
billion
up.
percent.
Every team in the league knows how this team's going to line up every game, right? We know what they're trying to do, and we know. And look, there are virtues to that in terms of a lot of teams will, we play the way we play. That's it, and we're going to find solutions to beat teams based on the way we play. But are there not times, especially when this, both John Herdman, both Jason Hernandez come out this season talking about depth or lack of it. And is there times where it's like, you know what, maybe we need to be a little more tactically flexible here. Maybe we need to, not try, square pegs and round holes, not try Derek Etienne as a false nine, no, this is not a disrespect to Derek Etienne at all,
Mhm.
right? Because I think he's
Yeah.
actually been a solid signing since he's come here for the most part when he's played in the position that he's best, which is a left or right winger, right?
Yes, totally
Yep.
agree.
So the question just becomes like, did John Herdman kind of get his tactics wrong in this one? Because I feel like there's a time to stick to your principles, and then there's a time where, you may need to be flexible based on the personnel you have at hand in a very crucial game.
If I can just interject, I said this when you were guest host on Tunnel Club. Herdman's coaching with both hands tied behind his back. Absolutely. Absolutely. When you approach it from that angle and you hit it at that metric, then he'll be found wanting. But what you're leaving out of the equation is, are you going to put Prince Owosu, who's coming off that disaster, that disaster class? He doesn't. Of course, we want him to adapt and do the things, but sometimes it's about punishing or rewarding people from training. Sometimes it's about, all the other myriad complications that enter into that situation and the lack of depth. So before I let you guys answer that, I've starred like 100 million things, and I need to get to them before they go. Some of them are absolute BS, like hell yeah, Jeff. I don't know why I starred that, but I starred Richardson.
That was on your
buying
CNE
Jeffrey
walking stick stuff.
I've
no,
seen
here
you
we go.
starring them, and I'm like, I need to address some of these as well.
Here we go. So first and foremost, walking sticks are free, but you had to listen to a 3-hour pyramid scheme.
Out.
Out.
I'm
I don't
out.
need a walking stick. I have a machete. I can tear down a branch. I'm going to save that one for a second. This is one. Sorry, I was a tad too emotional to be a captain, but it's the best we've got. This is an 8th, 9th place team at best, and it's better than last year. More moves need to be made for next season. Absolutely. I don't disagree with that. I don't think you can judge his performance as captain on this season. I know that sounds weird. I agree that he's a tad too emotional, but this team is more than a tad too emotional, and a captain is only as good as, like, he wants to be like a Michael Bradley captain, which is the general that leads from the field of battle as opposed to sitting high on the mountaintop with his other generals, plotting it like a chess game. And that means he's right there in the mire, and that means he's feeling everybody's feelings. It's impossible to expect him. He's already predisposed to be a hothead. It's impossible to expect him to tone it down. That's what we love about him. Maybe the job is too much for him this season, but I think the job is too much for anybody this season. Here comes Tertz's, and this one surprised me. Lorenzo has had some poor games for TFC, but Saturday wasn't one of them. I almost want to invite Tertz onto the broadcast, but
I kind of get what he's saying. I think I might get where he's going with that comment, though.
Okay.
Like, if you think about it, it goes back to what I said earlier, right? When you don't have the pieces that you normally connect with and make things happen with, yeah, you're going to look like not quite the same player. Look, and I said this on Tunnel Club the other day, like, historically, like, just you look at Lorenzo Insigne at Napoli, like, he was a great player there. He was a captain, obviously, but he wasn't like, the guy. Right, like he was a piece of that team, right? Like, before he had Cavani, before he had Higuain, he had Marek Hamšík in the midfield, he had Dries Mertens. Like, you had guys he could play off of and then make things happen, and that's what he's good at. So he needs those guys to be running. And look, I'm not making excuses. I know a lot of people want to go in on him, and for rightful reasons, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
But in that perspective, I think, that kind of makes sense.
That comment is
incredible.
Bring that up right now.
It's coming. Now,
okay.
I mean,
my thing with Insigne, and I'm trying to be judicious about how I explain this. The thing about a player like Insigne is there are two types of DPs in MLS, and unfortunately, you really have to have one type of DP if you're going to be successful. And I'm going to use our beloved number 10 as an example. Yeah. My guy always and forever will be Seba. The difference between, and somebody said this, somebody I trust deeply in Europe said this to me before TFC signed Insigne while the rumors were rampant. And it is, you are going to be disappointed because in MLS, your DPs have to be able to drive the bus and to make plays happen on their own. Yeah. Lorenzo Insigne is a guy that when he's able to play off of guys like Mike just laid out, he is absolutely incredible. But if he doesn't have guys to play off of, a lot of what makes him special goes away. Whereas if you look at a guy like Seba, nobody for a second is going to suggest that Seba is a better footballer than Lorenzo Insigne. They'd be kind of nuts to say that. But Seba was better suited for MLS because Seba could take the ball and say, I'm scoring, and that's it. You think about the game against Red Bull when TFC clinched the playoffs for the first time. Things like that. Lorenzo isn't capable of that. And I'm sorry, but when you are paying somebody $15 million, I expect you to be able to make plays on your own. You should not need anybody else. And I'm not going to say that I expect him to be Messi or anything like that. I do, however, at the tune of $15 million, expect you to be able to create things on your own and make a difference.
100%.
I guess is kind of what I'm saying there. And
we got the scouting so wrong. I mean, let's not mince words.
Yes,
that's never once happened before. Jeff.
We did, but in a way, definitely, I think, when the signing was made, obviously those, somebody talked about with this marketing thing. Yeah. Bill Manning told you that's what it was about. Right? He told you.
And even worse than that, Seba wasn't the guy at Juve either. And there were worries of, like nobody could have expected, I mean, maybe smarter people than me, but, based upon his career at Juve, signing him, Greg Vanney didn't want to play two at the front. Signing a guy whose best position is a second striker and forcing the gaffer to adapt could have been a disaster of Lorenzo Insigne proportions, but it wasn't because Seba rose to the challenge, and Greg is good, and he adapted. Ooh, that's a loaded one right there. And I mean, Seba was hungry. I think there's some truth to that. I think at the end of the day, I don't care how good the player is. I don't care how available they are. Overpaying to that level is asking for trouble. It just is.
Well,
It just
it's
is. And
handcuffed.
like
It's handcuffed this team.
hindsight is always 2020. Listen, I don't think it's handcuffed this team as much as not having an exit strategy or some kind of performance incentives or some way out of the deal.
Well, that's what
that
I mean,
isn't
right?
2026.
There's multiple ways it handcuffs
like
you, right?
yeah. Like for sure, you want to overpay to get them. That's fine, but give yourself outs that aren't nothing.
So
that
part
to
of
me
the
is
issue-
But he doesn't sign,
insanity.
right? Like,
Part
and
of the
to,
issue
and
here
Rachel's,
Then
is
you
that-
don't sign him. Then you
yeah.
don't sign
To
him.
Rachel's point, though,
Part of the
like,
issue here is that
Go ahead.
50% of the plan
Mhm.
fell through, and I don't think people know
Read.
about what the other 50%
Mhm.
of the plan was.
Mhm.
So we just talked about how Lorenzo needs guys to play off of.
Mm-hmm.
The third DP that was slated to be coming was Dries Mertens.
yeah.
It is a
Yep.
hell of a lot different when Lorenzo Insigne has Mertens to play off of with years of experience than it is for him to be coming over by himself. I think we are having a completely different discussion over the past 2 seasons if that
Mhm.
Mertens move does not fall through.
Yeah,
And that's the
maybe.
thing is once you knew
Maybe.
that Mertens was going to fall through, you have to have a backup and you can't handicap yourself like you guys were just kind of laying out there. And that's the
Mhm.
thing is I think Bill got so myopic about Lorenzo that he did not realize how sideways this was going to go if he didn't get a Mertens along with him. And that right there was a massive, massive overlook. And I
Mm.
think it was probably outside of letting Bez walk, one of the bigger mistakes he's made is not realizing the need for somebody to come in alongside Insigne that isn't another winger. Like it's got to be somebody who can play in the center of the park.
Yeah, I mean, look,
Yeah.
Dries Mertens technically wasn't, he could play in the center. That's not been traditionally his natural role, but I get what you're saying. I think to me, when I look at it, if you're going to pay him that kind of money, and Rachel, you hit it on the head, you got to be able to be, like somebody commented, a one-man wrecking crew who's going to put up incredible numbers. Basically, Denny Bawanga, right? You need
Yeah.
Denny Bawanga from
Yeah.
LAFC. Right. And
Yeah, I
Denny
love that.
Bawanga is like, when you look at the numbers, he's criminally underpaid in this league, right?
Yeah,
For the
criminally
numbers
underpaid.
he puts up, right? Like he is a one-man wrecking crew, right? And that is, I'm not saying they got to go out and get a Denny Bawanga, but like you got to have somebody who, and again, you talked about Seba and you're using the Seba comparison. I don't always love to use the Seba comparison because everybody will, right? Like how could you
Right.
ever, right, get by that shadow?
Untouchable. It's
Yeah.
the king.
The
But
one
even the
thing that's-
recruitment, like the genius of the idea for Insigne is begat from Seba's successes,
yeah,
right?
right.
Like,
And then
so
there's Jefferson
it's-
Soteldo before him, and
Ooh.
Ege Catcher before him. Like that was all the thought process, right? And here's the thing: when Seba got here, as you said rightly, Jeff, wasn't the guy. He wasn't the guy at Juve. Juve were more than happy to be like, all right, you want to go early? Yeah, sure, go. Right? Like he came here, as somebody said, hungry, wanting to prove something, and he came in and destroyed the league, right? And that is the difference, right? And then he became a star. He became a star because of his play, not because he already had a megawatt name in Europe, right? Like people knew, like we all knew who he was, like, but we also were kind of like, okay, right? Like I know a lot of people at the beginning were kind of like, right? Is this going to work?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Obviously,
I
it
remember
did.
that 100%.
Yeah, it obviously
Whereas
did,
with
right?
Insigne, it was a foregone conclusion. It was like he's going to come.
Yeah, he's going to come in and be the best player in the league. He has to be.
Yeah,
$50
exactly.
million in his pedigree.
Yeah.
He better, right? Like so.
And he's getting significantly outpaid by a guy who's making 35% of what he is.
Right. And that's the thing, right? So like, not to belabor again, the Lorenzo thing, but I think you have to speak of it in context of that. And then if you think about, it was mentioned earlier about John Herdman and coaching and who's sort of behind the bus there, you start looking at the way that this team plays sometimes and the indiscipline and the tactical inflexibility, and you start wondering about John Herdman. is he kind of getting some of this right? I know it's early in a sense that you probably still look, he's going to get another season unless, of course,
He
but
should
we'll talk
get
about
2
that in a
seasons.
minute.
Honestly,
Well, he
like
should. Will he?
Yeah.
That's another. We'll talk about that in segment 2.
Well,
but
exactly.
you know, like from yeah, right. But like, I mean,
No,
as
I
of right now,
realize we're also frustrated, but like I refuse to judge. Listen, I will judge Bob Bradley exclusive of being saddled with those 2 DPs because some of the decisions that Bob Bradley made were from space. He was given the opportunity to course correct and he fumbled the ball so badly, and he went after like players that were in his favor but hadn't really performed very well in years. It was just awful and ugly and terrible, and I'm glad it's over, for better or for worse. Conversely, with Herdman, and listen, there's a lot to not like about John Herdman as we're sort of getting into knowing him as a club coach. There's a lot of things that you can dislike about him, but I don't know if I can judge him because what his first priority is making it work with these guys, right? And I don't know if you can, and so does he have to fall on his sword because because it's impossible? I don't know.
I think
That's just
you have a
mhm.
situation here where, and I see a comment that's like, how can you compare what Seba had to what Insigne has? Nobody's comparing what they have and don't have. What we're saying is even when Seba had nobody else in the lineup, because there were many a times that Josie was not playing, and there were
Many.
quite a few occasions where Michael wasn't playing either. You never, ever questioned Seba's effort. You never questioned whether he cared about the club. You never questioned whether, like, yes, sometimes he was too emotional and sometimes he did ridiculous things, but every single time he did those things, it was because he was frustrated because everything was that he was doing was for the club. And yes,
Mm-hmm.
Seba on the whole had more. But if you are going to sit here and tell me that somebody who has won a Euro Cup should be not compared to somebody who sat on the bench and was a Juve player, like, I'm sorry, if you are being paid that amount of money, I expect you to be one of the best players in the league, regardless of who your teammates are. And Federico
Mhm.
Bernardeschi is not in that category because he isn't being paid $15 million a year. I expect at least twice as good a performance from Lorenzo as I do from Fede because he makes 3 times the money. And so when
Mhm.
you compare those two things in a vacuum, one, Lorenzo Insigne is a better football player. I expect better. Number 2, he's being paid like 10 times more. I expect better. You are
Mhm.
being paid this much money. I don't care who your teammates are. You should be able to score. End of story. Now, obviously, there's slack and tactics he needs guys to play off of. But Mike, you talked about it. If you are paying a DP this amount of money, I expect you to be a one-man wrecking crew. That is the end.
yes,
Mhm.
I am going to go back on that a little bit, and I'm going to tie this back to roster building and coaching a little bit.
Sure. Can I just
So
interject quickly
yeah,
before
go
this
ahead.
goes
Yeah,
away?
yeah.
Can we stop it with the well, at Napoli he did this. Well, at the Euros he did this. It's been 2 years. I'm pretty sure this player is who Lorenzo Insigne is now. And if he magically went back to Serie A and went on Napoli's team, he'd be benched because this is who the player is now. He's made out of glass. He cannot maintain health in any way, shape, and form. He's disinterested out there. And I don't know if his footballing skills have evaporated with age, right? Sometimes it's a precipitous cutoff. This is the ghost of the Lorenzo Insigne we expected. And this idea that it's just going to take like a magic incantation or solving these riddles 3 and he's suddenly going to be this world-beating player, I'm not sure I buy anymore. You know what I mean? And this sort of caveat when everybody talks about Insigne, but he's a world-class player. Is he?
He's not
Is
anymore.
he? You know
He's not
what? Like
anymore.
Sheridan Shaqiri scored an absolute worldie at Euros. Would people say that he's the guy that played? That he's exactly the player that he was when he played for Liverpool? Of course not.
No.
Lorenzo can score worldlies on occasion, but he's a lot closer to Shaqiri than he is to the guy that we think we've got, that we can unlock with striker X or left back Y or tactics, whatever the case would be. And the other thing. I think you said this, or I may have read it in Doyle's column, but you know, why is it somebody else's responsibility to figure out how he should play? If he's that good and that experienced, why isn't he demanding, I want this guy to be the starting left back every game? Why
There
isn't
you
he
go.
demanding, I want this guy to be the striker that I can play with? If he's that frustrated, why doesn't he have any answers? If his only answer is to coast out there,
Don't be part of the problem. Be part of the solution.
Fair.
exactly.
Can I get? I'll just jump in on this really quick.
Please, or I'm just going to ramble. But that was important.
Here's the thing. So you have Lorenzo Insigne, and you've paid him a lot of money to be the DP, and you by that point, yes, the plan for Dries Mertens fell through. I get that. But at that point, you've brought him in with no plan behind, like really no plan behind
no
him,
extra
right?
strategy.
No plan.
You had no plan behind him.
And that's
Other
not
than
Lorenzo's
jersey
fault.
sales.
You ended up buying him for a coach at the time who didn't want him, right? Like you basically bought him, and you kind of tell Bob, right, oh, we're getting this guy. You cool with that? You're cool with that, right?
You play a
and what is he
4-3-3.
supposed
You
to
like
do? He's
wingers, right? Let's go.
Yeah, he's like, okay.
Bob was like, God, no.
right?
I
No, but like,
I was present for some of those conversations.
yeah, like no, he doesn't want him. But like, what is he going to do now? Like the president's gone off and signed him already. So what is he going to do? So he gets
and some of this isn't his fault. Exactly. You're right.
right. He gets here. There's no plan. There's not enough talent around him. And I get it. We want these guys to be one man wrecking crews. And I do agree with you. And the reason I'm going to bring this back around again to LAFC is because when you bring in these DPs, and I've been saying this for a while, TFC lately, I'd say in the last 5 years, have been really great at like getting a lot of horses, really good horses, and having shitty carts behind them, right? Like just basically, right? Like carts that break down, they lose a wheel. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and how are you going to, like, what is the point of having these thoroughbreds if you don't, like, they run in wild, that's what they're going to do. They're going to run a wild and do whatever the hell they want. And that's kind of where you're at. And I think Lorenzo Insigne has a right to be somewhat frustrated with Toronto FC because I think some of the plans that we have talked about have not come through. I think
for 4 years.
Look,
4 years. I mean that tune is played out. That musical chairs.
No, it's not. If you think about the way this team has played in that time, it's not like we haven't been to the playoffs since 2020, since the pandemic year. And
let me turn the question around. If you're in a crap job and you're making a ton of money, will you be able to sustain it for 4 years? You hate your job, but they're paying you shut the F up money, right? Do you think you'd last 4 years?
I've been there. The answer is no.
I mean, maybe I don't know if I can answer this because maybe the half-life of my shut the F up jobs is not nearly 4 years long and it's understood. But like, I'd have to think. And again, not a professional athlete, but this isn't, I'm in the back, cutting promos for Discovery Channel, making stupid money, right? This isn't an office gig. Your experience, Rachel, is a lot more front facing, public facing than mine. But at a certain point, pride, ego, the desire to not let this be the last step on your career, right? The very last step. Has to has to mitigate or manifest in some way. And if it doesn't, then the only answer is that the player or the person knows that this is the last stop, this is the bag they're getting, and they don't care, right? So then that petulance and that frustration becomes performative at best because they don't care. They don't give an S. They're going to collect that paycheck regardless.
Do you guys notice, and like I've started looking into this because somebody mentioned it to me and I was like, there's no way that's true. And then I looked into it and I was like, oh Jesus Christ, it's absolutely true. Have you guys noticed that pretty much every DP that we've had when they leave the club is basically so bad that nobody else wants them?
Yeah.
Like, and this is absolutely not Lorenzo Insigne's fault because it started happening well before him. But like, how is it that every single time we have a star player, by the time they're done at TFC, they are so broken and beaten down that they're literally not good at the sport anymore? Like,
I mean, they courted Seba pretty aggressively.
Maybe there's a problem
Well,
off the
Seba's
pitch.
the one, and I guess Pozuelo to a certain extent, but like, no,
because we were auctioning him off for
exactly
chips.
Auction off the
exactly. I mean, I would have. I was checking couch cushions. Maybe I can afford him to just sit around my house and say cool stuff in a broken Spanish accent at that price,
Right, but like I think
when
that's
Paz left here, he was awful. Like that's why he shipped him out and other stuff. But
there were other stuff. It was the other stuff, and also he didn't like Bob Bradley just didn't know how to use them.
But that's kind of what I'm getting at here is like, what is going on off the pitch? And I'm going to leave it at what is going on because there are some things that are going on. But like, what has been going on at the club off the pitch that causes things like this to happen? Like, why are there more injuries than freaking players on the pitch at some point? Like, why did Alejandro Pozuelo come in and he was excellent, and then we do no research as a club and bring in a guy who completely screws up the chemistry of the club and manages to look like Fred Flintstone while doing so, and we literally have not recovered from that? Why is Josie being shunned as a club legend? Like, none of this is the players
still tweeting about fault. TFC, still voluntarily tweeting.
I was like, man. I texted Sloan and I was like, I love him so much.
Yeah.
Like,
I was like,
it's something with the club. They don't understand how to treat their players. Like, they just don't.
I'm going to raise my hand and say, listen, quite a few of them, when they left, are at the point in their 30s where it's over for them regardless of any shenanigans going on at the club. We tend to keep our players well into their 30s. So, well, I see some truth in that. I will counter and say, generally speaking, take TFC right out of the equation. A player that's amazing at 28 ain't going to be so amazing at 35, regardless of shenanigans. So just to play devil's advocate.
I will say this, that the club, you are right, Rachel, and this has been brought up on the show before by other guests, that the club, and this was really brought up during Michael Bradley's final season, or at least the final couple of games when he announced that it would be a final season, but we kind of knew it was going to be his final season anyway. That this club does not tend to leave great relationships with its ex-players, right? Like how many, like we see D-Row now on all this stuff, but there was a time where D-Row had nothing to do with
disowned the club completely.
He had to get roped back in to the club,
like,
right?
What are we doing here?
No, exactly, right? Like there's a lot of alumni that don't have a lot of nice things to say. And Stefan Fry is a current player; he's not retired or anything, but he doesn't exactly have the most glowing things to say about TFC.
And then you shunned Victor Vasquez for whatever reason.
Yeah, like
even though he offered to work for your academy, which, like, I don't know, I can think of a lot worse people to be in your academy than Victor freaking Vasquez.
But it goes back to what I was saying before.
Temperature rising.
Yeah, but it goes back to what I was saying before, the lack of a plan. So when you start bringing in these DPs and say, hey, come to TFC, we'll pay you a lot of money. We've won championships before. We got a great venue, great training facilities. Our fans are great. They come out in numbers, good, bad, or otherwise. And you have no plan. And they're like, yeah, okay, this sounds amazing. You get here and you realize, who's running the ship? who is he? Like, and now if you think about John Herdman, and we might as well get into the whole drone thing at this point, because we're at that point
before we do, here's no, we can skip word itself, but like, Louis, so this team also gives big contracts to injury prone players. I see this a lot. I agree,
but also
let me tell you firsthand, when you bring in your that's fine. But when you bring in European players, we still play a lot of games on turf. We still play a lot of games with long travel that's completely alien to European players, where you can spit and be in 6 different countries. You know, it lands in 6 different countries, right? Now, does that mean anybody who's had a knee injury we shouldn't even recruit? Or does it mean that sometimes you have to take a chance and hope they can adapt to the peculiarities of MLS? Because Chirone saying Insigne was not injury prone. I remember differently. I remember in his last few years at Napoli, he was definitely getting on the long side of being healthy for every game.
Yeah,
90
he missed
minute
Italy
games.
camp sometimes.
Yeah, he missed Italy camp. So yeah, and yeah, Richard Greenberg, they're not used to the humidity. So I find
there are
that
so many factors.
statement,
You're absolutely right, and the travel is chief among them.
And you absolutely cannot scout for that. You're taking a flyer. Any way you slice it, you're taking a flyer, right? Look at Messi. Messi wanted to go back to Newell's Old Boys or whatever team he started his career with.
Yeah, Newell's
post Inter Miami. That's not happening. He's broken. MLS broke him. When he's done at MLS, he's done playing football. It's as simple as that. So, even to a generational talent like Lionel Messi, the peculiarities of MLS were much more than he expected. And I guarantee you he had teams doing research with metrics and graphs and infographics and all of that other fun stuff. So again, this blanket statement, we give big contracts to injury prone players. I take certain umbrage with. Our medical team is garbage. Let's fix the medical team so that everybody doesn't end up we don't end up breaking these people, considering the vagaries.
I thought that was
MLS.
the plan. Bill gave us it's all coming in-house. We're all going to get the medical team all sorted out, and it's going to be one homogenous thing that reports to Jason, reports to me. And anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you're absolutely right in the sense that, it's tough to adjust. The one thing I will say, I was told directly by somebody at Napoli that he was coming with a calf injury history that may impede.
Yeah, he came here with a calf injury.
So, we could talk about him being injury prone, and I don't think he was injury prone. I just think he picks up knocks easier, and they're not as long term as a guy who's out with a torn ACL or whatever the case may be.
That's fair.
He picks up knocks.
That's fair.
And when somebody at Napoli tells me he has a history of calf issues, and they crop up on turf, that raised a huge red flag.
Let's give him $100 million.
Right? And so Cerrone might be right in the sense that he didn't have this litany of injury history, but TFC was told unequivocally that he has calf issues that have been proven to be more difficult to deal with on turf. And you are coming to a league where, as you just pointed out, is majority played on turf. And so
you start
that
all your training at the beginning of the year on turf.
And the TFC training facility is also on turf, and that is a totally different discussion. But these are all things that the club ought to have known, and that are not Lorenzo Insigne's fault. They knew. And so you can't put that at the feet of Lorenzo Insigne. You have to put that at the feet of the club, at the medical staff. And realistically, I think this is one of those things. The club, it is not the first time the club has forced a player to play through a knock. And I mean, it's one of those things where you wonder if they're even paying attention. And that's just, I don't know if we want to get to John Herdman now, but I think
we do.
Other than to say you play through it to put butts in seats.
Right, which I think is a terrible idea. Then your guy's out for months, and then you have no butts in seats. So that, to me, I will absolve Lorenzo Insigne of that blame, because TFC knew, and they should have been handling this better.
I think it stands for us all to say, look, when somebody hands you a bag of money, you don't look a gift horse in the mouth. When someone says, "We love you, here's tens of millions of dollars," you're not like, you take it. You take that bag. Absolutely. Regardless of anything. Anyway, it looks like Diamande flamed on TFC.
He played a solid 4.5 minutes. So I'm
not
really
according to his IG post, Last year was tough. I couldn't play the first part of last season with TFC due to Achilles inflammation that required surgery, not a rupture. In August of 2023, I was forced by the club on a season-ending list without me being happy, despite me being healthy enough to play the final games for TFC. All right, cool. Good story. Good
You
story,
weren't
buddy.
playing anyways because you're
Yeah.
terrible.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Yeah, you
coming.
weren't
Yeah,
playing
great
it, bro.
story.
I mean,
Great
All
story.
reality
Adama.
is like
Mhm.
I've seen this firsthand when I was like doing
Mhm.
work with the club. They do not handle injuries well. Like they just
Mhm.
straight up. It was under Greg Vanny. It was but like manageable. And then when Greg left, all of that like communication basically went up in smoke and flames, and
Mhm.
and and the medical staff has just been like kind of a mess since. Like doctors, fine, but like when Giuseppe, who is not even a medical professional, he just does ARPs, is like your lead of recovery. Like that's kind of a problem. Like, but he
But
speaks
he's
Italian.
but
I
he
so
love
knows
that you
everybody. He's
said
got
ARPs.
vibes, you know?
I love that you said ARPs like we know what the hell you're talking about. It
Oh.
sounds like a seal. ARPs, ARPs, ARPs. What's ARPs?
Okay. Oh, this is gonna make Jeff really angry.
Advanced rehabilitation syntax. What is ARPs?
Okay, so basically they're muscle stimulation machines. And
Mm.
there was a point
Are they Doctor
where
Ho? Is he like the guy that turns Doctor Ho on and off?
okay, so it's
Fantastic.
basically stepped up Doctor Ho, but here's where things get
Mhm.
wild. There was a point, and I'm not going to say when it was, but there was a point where TFC was foregoing workouts in favor of using ARPs because it did enough muscle stimulation. And I'm just going to say that that period of time coincided with a lot of injuries because maybe the guy who just sells ARPs for a living is maybe not qualified to be creating a workout program for a professional football club.
I hate
I don't
everything
know.
that just came out of your mouth. Like the last 3 sentences just gave me.
We'll just
hives,
let that
so-
hang. We'll just let that
Yeah,
hang.
we'll
to the
just-
listeners.
wow.
We'll let that hang.
We're just going to let that go.
Wow.
We're gonna
All
let that hang.
On to
We're
John
gonna let that
Herdman.
hang.
Yeah.
Onto
on to
another
John Herdman.
another whole bag.
We'll let it hang like
Uh,
a drone at 50,000 feet. So there
exactly.
you go. There's
exactly.
the segue. Woo!
We have not
Ba-dum-bum.
we have not specifically gone into like a full thing about John, and as we're 51 minutes into the show, we may not go super deep, but
Mm.
I thought it was to bring it up, one, because Rachel, you really want to talk about this, and two, like, look, we can't kind of ignore it, right? Like, we try not to, like, it is a speculation right now, so we just want to put that out there. It is just sort of speculation based on stuff Canada Soccer has come out and said about, you know, the whole drone program kind of starting with John Herdman. Is that true? We don't fully know yet, but
Mm.
there's smoke, there's fire, right? And now the question for TFC fans, of course, is, has he used drones since he's become manager of Toronto FC? Look, man, if you start something and you're successful in it, I don't feel like you're just gonna stop doing it, but I don't know, right? Long story short, if it is proven that he did use drones and that he did it with the national teams, men's and women's, and potentially has done it with TFC as well. Look, Bev Priestman right now is suspended for a year by FIFA.
She's going to be
Mhm.
gone.
And
Yeah,
is
she's
going to
gone.
be gone. Probably going to be gone after these Olympics anyway.
Yeah.
But you know, that hastened
Mhm.
the exit process. Is John Herdman, you know, should we be thinking about, is he going to be in some trouble here? Rachel, I know you wanted to talk about this for a while. I'm going to cede the floor to you and let you.
Yeah,
sort
I
of say your
see.
piece.
I see the floor until yeah.
Okay, so because I've had now time to like collect my thoughts and also talk to a bunch of people who are far
Mm.
more qualified than any of us, and knowledgeable on, generally speaking, this situation. Number one, I have worked in professional soccer, and I'm here to tell
Mhm.
you that if you don't think other teams and other nations are using drones, I have so many bridges to sell you. The difference between John Herdman / Bev Priestman, Canada, and everyone else is they were stupid enough to get caught because they
Yeah.
weren't doing it properly. And I'm
Mhm.
not saying that there's a proper way to do this, but also if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. There's that side of things. But all I'm saying is there's a reason that, and if you think about it conceptually, there is a reason that media in Canada was making a really, really big deal about this. And media in Europe was like, okay,
Meh.
so what's the problem?
Yep.
And
Self-flagellation.
that reason would be that people like Rick Westhead and Shireen Ahmed, who do fantastic reporting on really tough issues in Canada, as much as I love them, are not up to speed on what is and isn't necessarily acceptable in soccer
Yeah.
in the global thing. Is cheating bad? Yes. But to be comparing this to like Ben Johnson or like Russia doping or China doping, absolutely not.
No.
And you saw that with FIFA. I had somebody who had knowledge of the meeting where FIFA decided on the disciplinary action to Canada. That said, the only reason Canada is facing this penalty is because it's Canada. They would never do this if it was Argentina, if it was Germany, if it was France, if it was Colombia, if it was any of the major soccer powers. They said nobody, this punishment would not be the case. And the only reason it was a 6-point deduction was because they assumed Canada was going to lose to France, which then obviously would have put them out of the medal round.
Yep.
But FIFA knew that this was their one opportunity to kind of say, drones are bad, don't do it, without upsetting a nation that really brings in money. So basically, I'm here to tell you, everybody does it. They were just stupid enough to get caught. And the reality of the situation is, I don't think there's going to be a massive penalty to John Herdman because everything that happened is done. He's no longer coaching internationally, and he has said he doesn't want to. And so you really can't punish him on an international tournament scale. And at this point, unless he's caught doing it in MLS, which there's no way he could be stupid enough to do it now, in which case you deserve to be caught at that point if you are, then you can't really punish him. And that's the thing. I think the Canadian media made it a far bigger deal than it was,
Huge.
especially if you know a lick of shit about how soccer works around the globe.
Yes, I do agree with that. I don't agree with the people that went and tried to like threaten Westhead's like life.
Oh, that's
that
crazy.
was a little over the
That's
top,
nuts.
guys. Like
Yeah,
calm
I
down.
mean,
like,
that's-
just
yeah.
ooh,
He was doing his job.
So, yeah, he was doing his job, and I think why those reporters look, they go into this, and I believe it was Josh Cloak who said this. It's because look, generally as Canadians, kind of rule followers, right? Like we kind of don't like our teams being accused of cheating, right? Like if that gets, even if it's done in the sport, it's kind of like, well, we're Canadians and we don't do that, and it's like, well, actually, we kind of do. But like, like it's one of those things where
Have you seen our hockey program?
yeah, like you know what I mean? It's just we just want that the image, the thought of Canadians do it clean and fair and right, and that's why it became such a big thing in terms of the drone gate. Now, I will
you bring
say
up the Louis comment because
Mhm.
I have information on that.
on sorry, which comment?
That one.
It was a big deal.
Okay, here's the thing. He did not get a jail sentence because of the cheating. He got the suspended jail sentence because he was flying a drone in a restricted area where no aircraft was allowed to be flying. So
yeah, which is the genus of the stupidity here. Yeah.
that's not remotely the same thing. If he got an 8-month jail sentence for cheating, we're talking about something different. He got an 8-month jail sentence for breaking a law. Whether if he was using a drone just for funsies and not,
He would have had the
cheating,
same.
It would have
jail
been the same
sentence.
thing.
Yeah, it was-
Exactly.
Yep,
So that is not relevant to the context
It's,
of the cheating
these
situation.
false
and it is
equivalencies are rampant everywhere, and that's
It-
what pisses me off so much.
It's
That's what
also
drives me
not
crazy.
relevant to John Herdman, who was not caught flying a drone anywhere where it's illegal.
True. However,
Mhm.
I will bring up again sort of the devil's advocate thing, and it also relates to the stadium that is just out my window here. There is out of this an accusation. I think there has been a report to Canada Soccer about a potential drone during Forge training ahead of the first leg of the Canadian Championship. Now, I will preface this by saying this is East Hamilton. People fly drones for all kinds of weird shit. All right, so like it does
And you know how
happen
long
here.
you
It
know how
does
long
happen
a
here.
drone can be airborne without a flight plan at a certain height in a no-fly zone before it automatically shuts off and lands, which is my experience 90% of the time trying to fly a drone because I'm not a licensed drone operator. About 2 minutes. About
Yeah.
2 minutes.
So like,
yeah.
So look, it got brought up.
Yeah.
There was a report made to Canada Soccer. We have not heard about anything since. I'm
Because
not
because
saying
it's
here, there, or anything. I'm just saying
1984.
that came up.
It's anybody that sees a drone flying or even what looks to be a drone is going to assume that it's newsworthy at this point or whatever the case may be. The emperor has no clothes.
There is literally a drone flying outside my window right now. Speaking of
One
which,
and 100
Creepy.
yeah,
Maybe you need to call.
maybe report them to the Parisian authorities and see if we can get an 8-month jail sentence. We've said everything. We've all said.
You.
We've all said what we
he heard
what we
me
need to
talking
say
about
here.
it. Senior.
The thing that the reason why I agreed, well, one, because I never say no to Rachel, but the other reason that I agreed to even bring this up was, is he going to be penalized? And I'm not so sure that he won't, because of how insane this has all become, and because of the finger pointing and the hand waving and the self-flagellation and the fact that this is now clickable, clickbaity garbage, and I don't know if the desire for a pound of flesh has been satisfied. And so what I will say is this, be careful how far down the rabbit hole people want to go with this, because you start clutching pearls and you start putting you start choosing sides in something that really is ephemeral and all encompassing. What if it's revealed, like this all started with a complaint from New Zealand. What if it's revealed that John Herdman was doing this while he was engaged as an employee at New Zealand with the full blessing of their federation, which brings us right back circle. And that I kind of hope for that. Not just because I want to see some heads roll with the pearl clutching that we saw so often. Be careful, because before drones it was camcorders. Before camcorders it was press people.
Security
that
footage.
it was security footage. Before that it was recountances on cocktail napkins. While you were smoking cigars at the press club. Like, be careful how far back you go to get your pound of flesh, because I don't think anybody really is prepared for what they'll find by looking under all the couch cushions. So
the only thing I wonder about is, and again, for all the sickos watching this podcast live right now, this does not apply to you, but I just wonder, like, publicly, if it does come out that he was sort of the father of this for the national teams, and that because it seems like Canada Soccer really want to put it on him.
But how
he's
old
no
is
longer
drone
there, it's an
technology?
easy scapegoat.
Like, how much?
Yeah, exactly.
And how much of that is a consequence of timing? Like, did drones exist when Octavio Zembron was coaching the men's national team, or did they cost $400,000 and like come in a case that required 18 people to carry?
Yeah.
Like,
Also, I did
know what
hear
I mean?
a ton of complaining when Canada Soccer was raking in the money for qualifying and winning certain tournaments. So you don't get to pick and choose
What you're going to be
Exactly.
offended by. You
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
We're
Well, it's
talking
because
about a
people got
sport
bored,
where,
to give you guys an idea of like how ridiculous this is. I was speaking to somebody who's works for a team that is ranked in the top 5 in the world. And we were talking about this situation, and this person literally was laughing because he was like, this is ridiculous. Everybody does it. Like, just because you get caught, like, okay, don't get caught. But to get on your
That's
high
the
horse
moral
and
of the
say
story.
nobody else does this, why do you think nobody came out and rebuked the behavior? No, the Germans didn't come out. The Italians didn't come out. The Spaniards didn't come out. Argentina, Colombia, none of the.
They said as much that they could to convince optically that they dislike it without incriminating themselves, which is
exactly.
typical,
And then Drogba being like, "What do you mean? We did that all the time."
Yeah.
Everyone was like,
Yeah.
What?"
Make no mistake,
hello?
the idiots that try to fly a drone in controlled airspace during the mother humping Olympics
Yes,
deserve
so stupid.
deserve all the ire and career endingness, because it's just like tragic, tragically stupid, like tragically stupid and arrogant. But
Just like every
like,
team. I have news. Like if you show up at another team's training ground before a Champions League match and have training, and you don't think they're looking at that security CCTV footage, come on.
Yeah.
Come on. I mean, this
Like,
is a sport where
do you think
this
they
is
have
a sport
CCTV
where
footage on the field for no good reason? Like,
this is a sport where most people have full sleeves and leg tattoos, and yet their pain threshold is so minute that if a strong breeze hits them, they're rolling around on the floor for 17 hours. Like, and we're trying, like, it's crazy. It's just accept the chaos. It's chaos. It's a global sport that has taken in all the best and worst impulses of every culture on this planet. On the planet, all of our best and worst impulses are reflected in this sport. Enjoy it for what it is, pure chaos where grown men kick a ball and make a lot of money.
Yeah, I will
Right?
leave.
it's one of those things too that's like, Luis makes a good point. Bev's staff got caught breaking the law, and that's the issue, which is why I think this Herdman conversation is important. John Herdman did not break the law. The other dude did. So to be scapegoating John Herdman for somebody else breaking the law when this guy was not even on John Herdman's staff ever is ridiculous to me. You want to punish Bev, you want to punish the guy that broke the law. I have no problem with that because they
deserve
broke the law. That's different.
Yeah.
But you cannot be putting this at the feet of John Herdman, who did not break a law. That is the difference here.
But
I mean, Jason says it very eloquently.
Yeah.
There is a very good possibility social media will shame him.
Well, that's
MLS
where
will
I was
react. And in that case, the inmates are running the asylum again.
Right, and that's the only thing I'm sort of coming at with this, right? Is
then who
that
replaces him?
Bob
Want
Bradley,
to come here?
Michael Bradley.
Yeah, I mean,
I thought you said Bob. I was going to come through the computer.
No, I said Bob, and then
Michael
I
Bradley
said
would
Michael.
Mike Bradley's not come back to coach this team. No.
Maybe they'll hire the three of us as a three-headed Hydra Coast Beach.
Yeah, like that's I'll leave it at that, right? Because like that's
Jurgen
I think.
Klopp. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. I think even under this like ownership structure and how it's going right now, I think he'd struggle. But like that would be the one thing I would say is if this comes back in any way on John, really it's going to be the social pressure outside of like the TFC hardcore who kind of get it and the soccer people who kind of get it, right? If this happens, it's that other element of being like, you're cheating. We don't stand for this. As you said, Jeff, the pro clutching.
Like those are the same people screaming that why haven't we traded Lorenzo Insigne to the millions of teams that want him already, or no, but seriously, it's the same kind of knee-jerk reaction takes on TFC Live off the time that MLSE has no problem ignoring because they're idiotic. Let's be honest. So these are coming from the same place. So I would lose a lot of faith in this in MLSE if they responded to this knee-jerk insanity versus all the other knee-jerk insanity.
So we all agree breaking the law is the big deal here.
Yeah.
The actual flying of a drone is really not that big of a problem.
No, because if you're not flying a drone, you're getting someone to get into the training facility, and if you can't get somebody 100%. In the training facility, you've got a guy.
There's a great documentary on Netflix right now that the title escapes me, but it was about the sign stealing in college football for the Michigan Wolverines, which is legal in college football. It's actually in their legality that you can do it, but apparently not that one. It's legal, but not that one. I don't know what
it's
he
the same
did
thing with baseball.
Yeah. So,
exactly.
Then the Astros
Baseball's
happened,
the most
right? So
asinine.
Yeah, well, how many rules in baseball are gentlemen's rules that aren't?
That's what I mean,
nothing.
right? But
people
codify. It's so gentlemanly, and it's been around for so long. It gets codified, even though it's not actually codified, right? Like that. And that's kind of
and it made sense in 1914, and now it's surprise. It's been 100 years. Things are different now.
Technology.
What's crazy is I would sack John Herdman because I'm not necessarily sure he's the right skipper for the team. I would not
not
sack
over
him
this horse shit.
over
Yeah, I agree.
this.
Mhm.
Because if you,
Yeah.
quite frankly, if you're willing to sack a guy over this when he himself did not actually break a law,
Mhm.
you're gonna have a very hard time finding any coach of any good quality. Like I'm sorry,
I think
and
that's
this
a
is the
really
thing, is
important
everyone-
statement. Yeah.
The best example I have is everyone loves Pep. Like everybody loves Pep.
Mhm.
But if you deal with him on a day-to-day basis, he is going to say and do some things that you're like, I'm not necessarily on side with this.
Mhm.
But here's the thing: if you want
Because he's
Pep,
an animal. He's a madman. Yeah, absolutely.
if you want Pep, if you want Jurgen, if you want any of those guys, Thomas Tuchel, any
Mhm.
top guy, you are going to have to deal with things that you might not necessarily like. So at some point,
Agreed.
you're going to have to make a decision. If a law wasn't broken, because if a law was broken, then absolutely punishments need to be levied.
100%.
But you have to be able to say, if I want the best that's available, I have to be willing to live with some things that I might not necessarily like, but you know what I'm going to love? When somebody's lifting a goddamn trophy in December.
Mhm.
Well, just to make
That's
sure
what
your
I'm gonna
Faustian
media
pack.
team keeps the bad stuff underground so that we
I mean,
don't know about it.
sports
Or
is not immune to Faustian packs. Any public facing and winning anything that's based on winning or losing, which is life. Let's face it.
Yeah.
You're making Faustian packs. That it is what it is. You know what I mean? It is what it
Absolutely.
is.
All right, guys. I think we'll leave it at that for tonight's
Mhm.
show. We were gonna do a
Yeah,
little
that was
playoff,
hot.
but we'll leave that to next week when they're actually coming back to a
Mhm.
game.
I
So
mean,
we
my
can-
herds of the words were stuff that you talked about on the Tunnel Club, like the rhetoric of dying for the side and the sort of
yeah.
you'd like to see it. You
Cliches.
like to see it because, well, it's better than him coming out and saying, "Remember 4 months ago when I said that's the most disappointed I've ever been in my coaching? Well, haha, I lied. This is the most disappointed I've ever been." Like,
New one.
oopsie. Can we have a
achievement
mulligan? Yeah. New
Well, I think
achievement
we'll have a
unlocked.
whole. You know what we should do as sort of like an off-season thing is we'll do like a best of heard word clips of all the euphemisms.
So you know
and
what
all the
I
things he's
should do?
done.
That's fine. I'll do.
Super.
Yeah,
clip.
yeah. So
super clip.
yeah, so it and just further on that, he was definitely calling out Lorenzo in thinly veiled in that press conference. He's definitely
Yeah.
which gives me some concern because it's gotten to that point. They're no longer about sharing perfume and restauranting tips. He's calling him out and I'm almost glad that Lorenzo doesn't do many press conferences because maybe we're saved from the opposite of that, which is him not so thinly calling out the gaffer as well. So
Yeah,
we'll
like I
see.
think, and I see people being like, we didn't touch on the 3-1 performance.
It sucked.
had-
It sucked.
Here's the thing, very happy for Alex Bono. I love that man.
Mhm.
He is great and frankly deserved it. 2, the tactics were bad for the personnel that they had on the pitch. 3,
Mhm.
it really honestly looked like half of them did not give a flying hell about being there.
Mhm.
That's pretty much
Yeah.
the analysis
Yeah.
of the game.
Yeah,
Yep.
and we talked about
Yeah.
it within like those other 10 minutes where we weren't talking about deep fried Oreos and
They were shut off. Wingo's a professional. Why did he not just kick it into touch when he was that exposed?
Quickly on that,
You know?
yeah, because
Yeah.
he was brought in to be a guy who carries the ball,
Doesn't care,
right?
when you're
But he should've
in
put it
when
in
you're
there. You gotta be able to
in
make a
that
decision.
area.
Yeah.
Yeah, you make like 10
100%.
times out of 10, you just kick it into touch and then you scream at everybody that puts you in that
100%.
position, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
You Michael Bradley
Richie.
them.
You Michael Bradley them. Like Richie, people are saying Richie was really underwhelming. Yeah, because he was triple marked by like the 40th minute. Like they had 3 guys on him.
DC
Yeah.
did such a good job of cutting off. What I noticed is, and
Mhm.
like, I could hear it because I was close enough. I could hear them talking about cutting off the left side of the pitch, basically like make it so that TFC have to play without Lorenzo and Richie. They did a much better job of keeping the ball away from Richie because in talking to players around MLS, they're they know that if they take away the players that get the ball to Insigne, they nullify Insigne because he's not
Yep.
a one-man wrecking crew. And so
Mhm.
DC's big thing was basically doing a press on Richie, because they knew if they did a press on Richie, the ball would never get to Lorenzo
Never
and
get
they'd
to
never
Lorenzo.
have to worry about him.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
actually thought that DC did a tactically fantastic job of completely nullifying that left side, because all they did was basically gegenpress Richie,
Mhm.
and
Yeah,
he wasn't
marked him
able
right out of the game.
to do
Yep.
anything. And that's not Richie's fault. Like, I don't expect Richie to be able to play through a 3 and sometimes 4 press marking scheme. That is asking
Yep.
a lot of anybody not named Lionel Messi.
Yep, he still did some nice things despite being marked out of the
Yeah.
games, which is a testament to his talent. I
Still
mean,
had an
I'll only
assist.
add TFC were allergic to playing up the middle. It was annoying. It was
Oh,
just
yeah.
consistent
And I
attempts to
think that's where you
go
miss Oso.
to the wings.
They're
they
over
just
reliant on it, and it's very easy to.
and then just recycling the ball. Like, there were so many opportunities to just try something. Like, it may not be perfect, but you have the ball in an attacking position. Stop recycling the play looking for perfection. It's not happening. Look at your roster. Like, if you need an example that perfect doesn't exist, look at your damn roster. Stop looking for perfect on the pitch. Just try things. Like, it was so
But this
annoying.
is, like what
Yeah,
Cerrone said,
yeah.
there should be 3 open players if Richie is marked by 4. You're absolutely
He's
correct.
100%
Here's the
correct.
problem, though.
Mhm.
John's
Yeah.
system wants to play through the flanks, so they're not
And has no
clinically
answer.
trained to see that Richie's being marked by 3 or 4 guys and move the ball to the middle of the pitch. You're absolutely right, Cerrone. Like, that was 100%. And the amount of times I was screaming internally, being like, move it to the middle of the pitch. Because
Me too.
there's wide open space there. And John doesn't have them do that. And that is on the gaffer. That is not on the players. That is on the gaffer.
100%.
100%. So you got to be able to adjust and say, they're quadruple marking Richie. We got to get the ball to the middle of the pitch, and we got to focus and force them away. And ideally, you'd hope that guys can pick up on that. But I think we're kind of in a situation where, with Lorenzo and Federico and Oso and Richie, that the players not named those 4 have become over-reliant on them and kind of expect them to do everything else.
Yes, which, I mean, Cerrone is saying, sorry, they're not that stupid. It's a team sport, and they're given instructions, and they don't want to deviate. Because if you go off the reservation in a team sport, in game states, you're going to get found out like Wingo was on the side, right? Like your team's not there to play with you. You're expecting the team to psychically
we've benched
communicate.
guys in teams I've worked for. We've literally, not even in the 11, not in the 18, we've said press box, like for that kind of stuff. So I get what Cerrone's saying here, but as somebody who's
so
been
do
a
I,
coach
because
in
logic
professional
would
sports,
suggest
no.
Yeah, logic would suggest you're out there, you're a professional footballer, you're seeing it's not working, so you're taking the mantle upon yourself. That is sacrosanct to how teams operate and how they're drilled and how training works and how positions work. And John specific asks, and that's why the Bob Bradley's teams looked so discombobulated when it all went wrong. It's on the gaffer. It's not on the individual players. I realize we're saying, we need them to be one-man wrecking crews, but there's also a certain amount of team in this team sport, and
if you're
especially
conditioned
with
to
role
play
players
up the flank, you're not gonna all of a sudden start going rogue, because when Henry Wingo went rogue and started playing up the middle, what happened?
Exactly.
Nobody was prepared, and the ball ended up in the back of the net. And that's the 100%. Problem is John Herdman does not train his guys to say, okay, if the flank is taken away, this is plan B. There was no plan B, and that is the problem.
Yeah. And I think that's where we can talk about him getting the tactics wrong. But I didn't show her only because my work phone's not ringing, so I think there might be a fire.
Yeah, no, he's got to go.
But thank you for tuning in to Toronto Till I Die. Find us on all the socials, Instagram,
this was a good
Twitter.
One
yeah, it'll be up on the podcast for you to download if you want to do that. If you do, 5-star rating, please. Leave us a review. Jeff loves them.
Subscribe on YouTube. We need a few more to get to Moolah land. So subscribe twice, create new accounts. Help us out.
do all the shady stuff if you need to.
Yeah. Fly a drone over YouTube to help us out, please.
All right. For Jeffrey P. Nesker, for
a digital
Rachel Doerrie, I'm Mike Newell. We'll see you next week. Drone free, hopefully. Cheers, everybody. Peace.
And wait, and baby, I'm TFC till I die.